My son put my suitcase by the curb, in the rain. I watched from inside his car, arthritis clawing at my knees, my hands trembling, holding the scarf I'd knitted for his 40th birthday. He turned to me, cold eyes like his father's. "You're a burden we can't afford anymore, Mom." I said nothing. Silence was my only weapon. They thought I was broken. But I was just getting started. I drove 500 miles through a storm so fierce it swallowed the horizon, leaving only gray and thunderous darkness ahead. My fingers, twisted and worn from arthritis, clutched tightly at the steering wheel, knuckles white, joints throbbing with every mile. Beside me rested a freshly baked apple pie, still warm enough to fog the passenger side window. I'd risen long before dawn, carefully peeling apples grown in my backyard, mixing cinnamon and nutmeg as I always had, the recipe my late husband Richard used to say could mend broken hearts. Baking this pie was a ritual, a symbol of love, something pure from mother to daughter, a silent prayer that maybe this time we'd find our way back to one another. My daughter Amanda was turning 45, a milestone that deserved more than just a phone call. I hadn't told her I was coming. Some part of me, perhaps naive or simply hopeful, imagined her eyes lighting up when she saw me standing in her doorway, pie in hand, as if the distance of these past years could vanish in one embrace. The highway stretched endlessly, blurred beneath relentless rain, the wipers beating rhythmically, left, right, each swipe a pulse echoing the dull ache in my heart. Hours passed in quiet contemplation, memories drifting softly like faded Polaroids slowly coming into focus. When Amanda was small, she'd dance barefoot in our kitchen, twirling beneath the soft glow of evening. Her laughter would rise and fall like music, filling the house with warmth. Back then, I could fix any hurt with a slice of warm pie and a whispered reassurance. But somewhere along the way, those whispers became less comforting to her. My presence less welcome. The closeness we'd shared dissolved into brief phone calls and terse text messages, words measured carefully, walls built higher each passing year. But still, I clung stubbornly to the belief that love, if shown clearly enough, could repair any damage. As twilight draped over the landscape, I finally turned onto Amanda's street. Large homes stood regally behind manicured lawns, illuminated softly in the evening gloom. Amanda's house, the largest on the block, seemed brighter, warmer than the others, a picturesque haven of domestic bliss. Parking discreetly across the street, I took a deep breath, checked my reflection in the mirror, smoothing silver strands of hair dampened by the journey, adjusting the scarf around my neck, the silk scarf Amanda had gifted me years ago, before gifts turned into empty gestures. Stepping out, I shielded the pie from the rain, my steps careful but determined. The porch was welcoming, lined with white railings, freshly painted and perfect. Approaching the front door, my heart quickened, my breath shallow. I raised a hand to knock, then hesitated. Something held me back, an instinct perhaps, a whisper of doubt. The laughter from inside was warm, mingling with the aroma of roasted garlic, rosemary, and something savory, Amanda's favorite. Without thinking, I pushed lightly on the door, finding it unlocked, an invitation unspoken. I stepped quietly inside, the marble floor polished, reflecting the chandelier's light like a mirror beneath my worn shoes. Voices drifted clearly from the kitchen, laughter rising again, carefree, untouched by any concern. I moved silently closer, pie still carefully balanced, heart now a fragile drumbeat. I stopped abruptly at the doorway, my pulse echoing painfully in my ears as Amanda's voice sliced through the cheerful clatter of pots and pans. I honestly just wish she'd crash her car and spare us all the endless guilt trips. At least then we wouldn't have to keep pretending to care. Her voice was calm, conversational, utterly casual, as if speaking about an inconvenience, not the mother who had once rocked her to sleep and nursed her through sickness. My chest tightened sharply, breath catching in my throat, eyes widening in disbelief. Jason chuckled in agreement, his tone flat, cold. "Yeah, your mom's turned into quite the burden, hasn't she? If only we could be rid of that problem." The pie trembled slightly in my grasp, suddenly heavier, my fingers numb. The scarf around my neck, Amanda's gift, felt strangling, oppressive, as though woven from betrayal itself. My knees weakened slightly, each word echoing through my bones, twisting like a blade. My own child, my Amanda, whom I'd shielded from the world's harshness, wished me dead, spoken aloud with no hesitation, no remorse. The silence that followed their laughter was deafening, punctuating the cruelty of their words. For a moment I stood immobilized, unable to retreat or move forward, suspended in the terrible truth of what I'd overheard. I thought of stepping forward, confronting them, demanding explanations, an apology, anything. Yet something deep within restrained me. Instead, I carefully placed the pie on the console table near the kitchen door, my hands visibly trembling, the warmth already fading into the cold marble beneath. I turned slowly, retreating back into the darkness of the hallway, leaving the poison of their words behind me, each step away from them feeling both impossible and necessary. Back outside, the rain fell harder, drops stinging cold against my flushed cheeks, washing away tears I refused to acknowledge. I climbed back into my car, breathing uneven, heart thundering wildly. Silence enveloped me, deep and oppressive, as the engine quietly purred to life. As I pulled away from the curb, headlights slicing through the darkness, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. In the rearview mirror, their home receded slowly into the gloom, lights warm and inviting, but now unbearably distant. I drove through the empty suburban streets, past perfectly maintained houses and neat lawns that masked countless hidden sorrows. I drove until the neighborhood faded into memory, until the familiar ache of arthritis blended with something deeper, sharper. Betrayal etched indelibly into my soul. The storm roared louder now, matching my inner turmoil, lightning illuminating the road in flashes of stark clarity. Each mile widened the gap between past illusions and harsh reality. They saw me as weak, dependent, disposable, just another aging inconvenience. But in that moment, something else stirred beneath my grief, an ember quietly ignited in the depths of my dignity. The hurt was profound, crushing, but it forged a resolve I'd never known before. I would not confront Amanda with anger or tears. I would not beg for understanding or forgiveness. My words had already fallen on deaf ears too many times. Instead, I chose silence. Intentional, powerful silence. Not the silence of defeat, but of carefully measured strength. They had mistaken my compassion for weakness, my patience for passivity. They believed their careless cruelty could break me, diminish my worth, erase my presence. Yet in the quiet depths of my wounded heart, clarity emerged, crystalline and fierce. They thought I was shattered, helpless, insignificant. They thought the years had stripped me of any power, left me without voice or choice. But the pain they inflicted unwittingly gave rise to a power I hadn't realized I still possessed. Dignity was not theirs to take from me. Respect was no longer theirs to withhold. My silence became my answer, my rebuke, my quiet revenge. For within that silence lay determination, a strength unspoken yet undeniable. I would no longer wait by the phone, hoping for a kindness never given freely. I would reclaim my worth, rebuild a life free from their disdain and manipulation. My future would be defined by my choices, my values, not their callous disregard. As the storm eased slightly, leaving the road shimmering wet beneath the streetlights, I knew one truth clearly: love could mend wounds, but self-respect could rebuild worlds. Amanda had turned away from who I was, and Jason had joined her willingly. Now, I would turn toward myself, embracing who I had always been. They thought I was broken, defeated by age, and abandoned by family. But they were wrong. I wasn't broken. I was just waking up. I arrived home long past midnight, the old house shadowed in moonlight, standing quietly as if holding its breath. I sat motionless behind the steering wheel, gripping it as though it were a lifeline, my knuckles white and aching. Rain still dripped from the windshield, the droplets like tiny tears running silently downward. The pie tin lay empty beside me, hollow, meaningless now, its warmth long faded, just like the dreams I'd carried with me down that endless highway. I opened the door slowly, stepping into the chill of early morning. The air hung heavy, smelling of damp earth and memories. Every step towards the porch felt heavier, each creak beneath my shoes echoing sharply, punctuating my loneliness. I reached the front door, the brass handle cold in my grasp, unlocked it, and stepped inside. The house welcomed me into silence. Furniture draped in shadows, rooms heavy with absence, photographs on the walls staring quietly from their frames. Images of happier times, family trips, Amanda's childhood smiles, moments frozen, unreachable. I moved slowly through the darkness, navigating by memory rather than sight, feeling my way through the home I'd once filled with laughter and life. My footsteps echoed softly against hardwood floors, a solitary sound in the emptiness. In the kitchen, I switched on a single dim light, the faint glow casting shadows long and distorted across familiar countertops. My eyes landed upon a stack of unopened envelopes and unread newspapers, reminders of days lost, moments untouched. I reached toward a framed photograph on the shelf, my late husband Richard's eyes smiling warmly back at me from behind the glass. For years, this photo had anchored my days, a silent companion during moments of quiet longing. Tonight, his gaze felt different, almost questioning, perhaps gently reproachful. "You warned me," I whispered softly, the words barely audible, swallowed by silence. My chest tightened, my heart constricted. Richard had always sensed something distant in Amanda, even from childhood. He saw what love had blinded me to, cautioning softly over morning coffees, his voice low and gentle, urging me to protect myself. But I'd refused to see, or perhaps I'd chosen not to. I always believed love was enough to bridge any gap, enough to mend whatever fractured between mother and child. I moved away from his photograph, drifting through rooms dimly lit by moonlight, filtering through curtains, each step bringing echoes of forgotten laughter, whispers of childhood stories told long ago. Amanda's old room lay untouched down the hall, its door slightly ajar as if waiting, holding on to hope long gone. I paused, pushing the door open carefully, the hinges protesting quietly. The room sat frozen in time, decorated with faded posters, a dusty collection of books, trinkets from her teenage years, all remnants of a girl who had once been mine. A pang of sadness rippled sharply through me, leaving a hollow ache behind. How quickly the years had slipped away, leaving behind a woman I hardly recognized as my daughter. I sat gingerly on the edge of her bed, the mattress familiar beneath my touch, yet now oddly foreign. My fingers traced the embroidered coverlet, a gift I'd crafted over months of careful, patient stitching. Each stitch had been a prayer, woven with dreams of happiness and protection. I wondered how many nights Amanda had slept beneath it, without thought of the love infused into every thread. I took a shaky breath, grief washing over me anew, raw and relentless, an ocean I could no longer hold back. Slowly I lowered my head into my hands, allowing tears to flow unchecked, silent sobs shaking my shoulders, grief pressing like stone against my chest. It was a grief far deeper than anger, heavier than disappointment, a quiet collapse of something within me, fundamental and irreplaceable. I mourned not only for the loss of my daughter's love, but for the loss of who I believed she was. The pain ran deeper than physical wounds, more profound than the slow betrayal of aging bones or joints worn from years of giving. This pain was etched into my very being, engraved into a heart already worn thin by life's trials. As dawn crept slowly through curtains faded with time, I remained unmoving, wrapped in silence so deep it became tangible. I knew the phone on the bedside table would remain silent. No call to ask if I'd returned safely, no message to assure me that it had all been a misunderstanding, that I was still valued, still loved. The truth, cruel and inescapable, was that my worth had been weighed, measured, and found lacking by my own flesh and blood. I had become invisible, disposable, an inconvenience. In the quiet aftermath of grief came clarity. The storm within me slowly stilled, replaced by an unfamiliar emptiness. There were no more tears left to cry, no more desperate pleas for attention, validation, or care. All my life I'd nurtured others, my husband, my daughter, friends, neighbors, never once imagining myself as someone deserving of nurturing in return. My self-worth had been quietly bartered away over years of selfless giving, until nothing remained but a hollow vessel, begging for scraps of affection. Rising stiffly from Amanda's old bed, I steadied myself against the dresser, the reflection in the mirror confronting me with harsh honesty. My face, lined by age and softened by sorrow, stared back defiantly. The woman in the mirror was tired, but beneath that exhaustion glinted a quiet resolve I'd never before recognized. Perhaps grief had stripped away illusions, leaving behind a stark, unwavering truth. The worth that others had failed to see, I must finally acknowledge myself. Returning to the kitchen, I brewed a pot of strong coffee, filling a chipped porcelain mug Richard had loved. The first sip tasted bitter, grounding, real. Outside, the morning brightened slowly, the garden visible through the window, now lush and vibrant from last night's rain. Richard had planted that garden decades ago, tending carefully each season, teaching me patience, resilience, renewal. Those lessons echoed now, louder than ever, mingling softly with memories of his quiet wisdom. Slowly, deliberately, I made my way to the porch, settling into Richard's favorite rocking chair. I pulled a shawl tightly around my shoulders, breathing deeply the crisp air, filling my lungs with something clean and fresh, a taste of life renewed. The silence now felt different, less oppressive, more comforting. I rocked gently, rhythmically, each creak of the chair a quiet affirmation of presence and resilience. My mind drifted to the days ahead. Uncertain days, certainly lonely days, but days that belonged entirely to me, no longer bound by expectations, no longer defined by the approval of others. Amanda's cruel words had broken something fundamental, but in breaking me open, she unwittingly set me free. Free to redefine myself, free to reclaim dignity quietly stolen, free to rebuild on foundations of self-respect. For the first time, I allowed myself a small, cautious hope. Not hope born from the illusion of reconciliation, nor dependent on external validation, but hope born from within, steady and certain. My journey was far from over. Wounds would heal slowly, scars would remain, but so would strength. Pain had carved channels deep within me, and now silence filled those spaces, nourishing roots long dormant, ready to grow anew. Rocking softly, watching sunlight gently paint the garden, I felt an ember of strength flicker to life inside. It began small, fragile but persistent, glowing gently beneath the ashes of despair. They thought me powerless, voiceless, broken, but silence had always been my hidden strength, quiet dignity my truest shield. In my silence lay the power to reclaim myself, rebuild from within, and in quiet defiance choose the life that now stretched before me. In the days that followed, I moved quietly through the house, my presence reduced to shadows and whispers, tiptoeing around my own memories. I had always trusted Amanda and Jason implicitly, had placed my faith in their integrity and love. But trust, I had come to realize, was fragile, shattered silently by careless hands. I felt a deep unease gnawing within me, restless and insistent, urging me toward answers I wasn't sure I was ready to face. One afternoon, the sunlight poured gently through the study window, dust motes floating lazily in its golden warmth. I found myself standing before the old mahogany desk Richard had cherished, his sanctuary during countless late nights. The room still held his scent, faint but comforting, a lingering blend of pipe tobacco, worn leather, and time. Something drew me there, inexplicable yet compelling. Perhaps the ghost of intuition, or perhaps the quiet guidance of a man who once shielded me from life's harshest blows. I opened the heavy drawers slowly, feeling their familiar weight under my touch. Inside lay orderly stacks of papers, yellowed letters, photographs faded and curled with age. I traced my fingers over these fragments of our shared history, feeling Richard's gentle presence hover protectively. But deeper beneath these layers of memories, my fingers brushed against something unfamiliar, a folder, tucked discreetly at the back, almost hidden. My heart quickened, a subtle tremor traveling through my veins. Carefully, I removed the folder, its edges crisp, untouched by dust or wear, as if deliberately concealed. With hesitant fingers, I untied the string that bound it, lifting the cover. Inside lay neatly stacked documents, papers bearing signatures, dates, and official stamps, cold and sterile against my fingertips. My pulse quickened further, a feeling of dread rising steadily within me as I scanned the pages, comprehension slowly dawning like a dark horizon emerging through morning mist. Each document was a loan guarantee, bearing my signature, authorizing significant sums of money borrowed by Amanda and Jason. Loans for houses, vehicles, and business ventures, agreements I had no memory of signing. My breath hitched sharply, disbelief warring violently with recognition. I studied the signature carefully, feeling a cold numbness seep into my bones. It was unquestionably mine, yet unfamiliar, rushed, careless, a betrayal inked in haste, hidden from my view. As I leafed through the documents, my stomach twisted painfully. Page after page, I saw my trust exploited, my generosity silently manipulated. The sums were staggering, obligations that bound me legally to debts I'd never knowingly accepted. A surge of nausea threatened, my vision blurred with sudden tears, hot, angry, betrayed. Amanda, my own daughter, the child I'd raised with love, had methodically deceived me, turning our bond into financial leverage. The room spun around me briefly. I steadied myself against Richard's desk, its solid oak firm beneath my trembling hand. Shame burned sharply through me, humiliation hot upon my cheeks. How long had I ignored signs, turned away from quiet warnings, dismissed vague discomforts as misplaced anxieties? My mind raced desperately, retracing steps through months, years. Small clues I had dismissed as paranoia now revealed starkly as reality. I sank slowly into Richard's worn leather chair, its surface cool against my skin, grounding me in the storm of discovery. My heartbeat filled the silence, loud, insistent, echoing through the emptiness around me. Anger rose swiftly, fierce and unfamiliar, a wave swelling steadily within me, potent yet controlled. Beneath anger lingered profound grief, the ache of betrayal slicing deeper than any knife could reach, tearing through layers of trust and years of unconditional love. Minutes stretched into hours, the afternoon sun drifting slowly across the study walls. My thoughts swirled chaotically, weaving between disbelief and clarity. Gradually, the initial surge of shock gave way to quiet resolution, a new strength forged slowly beneath layers of pain. Richard had always admired my resilience, had often whispered gently, "You are stronger than you know." Now, I drew on that remembered strength, feeling his silent encouragement steadying me. I placed the documents carefully back into the folder, hands steady now, deliberate and calm. Rising slowly, I carried the folder from the room, determination growing with every step. In the hallway mirror, my reflection paused me briefly, eyes red-rimmed but steady, jaw set with quiet resolve. I saw not the broken woman Amanda and Jason assumed I'd become, but someone reshaped by pain, tempered by betrayal, sharpened by truth. In the kitchen, I reached for the phone, my fingers dialing with newfound clarity. The line rang softly, once, twice, before a calm voice answered. Robert Hartman, attorney at law. I took a measured breath, my voice clear and unwavering as I spoke words I had never anticipated needing. "Robert, this is Eleanor. I need your guidance. There's something important I must discuss, privately." That evening, seated quietly in Robert's downtown office, I presented him the folder, each document an unspoken accusation laid carefully upon polished oak. Robert, a family friend for decades, studied each page intently, his expression darkening subtly as comprehension grew. Finally, he removed his glasses slowly, meeting my gaze with sober clarity. "Eleanor," he spoke quietly, his tone compassionate yet grave, "this is a serious betrayal, both emotionally and legally. How you choose to respond will define your future and theirs." His words resonated deeply, settling into my chest with profound weight. I nodded slowly, understanding clearly now the gravity of my next steps. "I trusted them, Robert," I whispered softly, pain sharpening the quiet edge of my voice. "But trust has limits, and love alone can't erase cruelty. I won't let myself be treated this way any longer." Robert inclined his head gently, respect and empathy evident in his quiet demeanor. "You're making a brave choice, Eleanor. Standing up for yourself after years of giving is never easy, but it's necessary. They underestimated your strength. Don't let them define who you are." Returning home that night, the house felt different, its silence no longer oppressive, but empowering. As I entered Richard's study again, I felt no lingering hesitation, only renewed purpose. Carefully, deliberately, I sat once more at his desk, pen poised firmly between steady fingers, writing a letter composed not of anger but quiet dignity, reclaiming control of my life and assets, undoing legal ties woven without consent. Each word flowed smoothly, carrying authority long hidden beneath gentle patience and unspoken hurt. My message clear, unwavering, dignified. I would revoke every unauthorized guarantee, every obligation forced upon me through deception. My trust had been betrayed, but my worth would no longer be measured by their convenience. Sealing the envelope firmly, I leaned back quietly in Richard's chair, a small, resolute smile playing briefly across my lips. They had believed me weak, assumed age had dulled my senses, eroded my dignity. But their betrayal had ignited a quiet fire within, burning softly yet steadily, fueled by newfound clarity and strength. In silence, I placed the letter prominently on the desk, a declaration awaiting delivery, a boundary clearly drawn. Darkness deepened slowly around me, shadows stretching long across familiar walls. But within me, light now burned brighter, resolve replacing doubt, dignity reclaimed from betrayal's shadow. They thought me powerless, deceived, forgotten. They believed betrayal would leave me shattered, voiceless, unable to respond. But betrayal instead awakened me, Pain had carved deeply, silence had clarified, and now, finally, power rose steadily within me. In the weeks following the revelation, a heavy stillness settled around me, deepening with each passing day, wrapping me in a quiet sense of purpose I'd never known before. The betrayal had sliced through layers of trust and love, yet it had also freed something within me, something that had long been buried beneath decades of self-sacrifice and silent endurance. I moved quietly, deliberately, knowing that my next actions would reshape not only my life but theirs as well. It was an unfamiliar feeling, power born from pain, resolve forged in silence. Each morning as sunlight filtered softly through the old lace curtains, I sipped my coffee slowly, savoring the solitude, my mind focused clearly on the steps ahead. There were no angry confrontations, no tearful pleas for explanations, only the careful, deliberate execution of justice, delivered quietly, steadily, without fanfare. My lawyer, Robert Hartman, guided me gently through the process, his calm demeanor providing the steady reassurance I needed. Documents were signed discreetly, obligations silently withdrawn, guarantees gently but firmly revoked. With each stroke of my pen, each deliberate signature, I reclaimed a piece of myself, pulling my dignity back from the brink of loss. On a cool morning in early October, I walked quietly into the local branch of my bank, greeted warmly by familiar faces behind polished oak counters. They knew me here, knew my family and our history. Yet today was different. The air charged subtly with the weight of my intent. I sat down across from Martha, the senior account officer who had known Richard and me for decades. She offered a gentle smile, warmth tempered by curiosity as I quietly presented her with the official letters Robert had prepared. She read each carefully, her eyes widening slightly with understanding, her expression shifting subtly, sympathy mingled with quiet admiration. When she met my gaze again, her voice was steady, respectful. "Are you certain, Eleanor?" I nodded calmly, my voice clear, quiet strength evident in my tone. "Yes, Martha, absolutely certain." She inclined her head gently, acknowledging my decision without further questions. Each document she processed severed another invisible tie, withdrawing financial support from Amanda and Jason's lives, ties they'd forged through deceit and betrayal, bonds I now quietly yet decisively dismantled. That evening, I sat quietly by the window, twilight settling softly across the garden, shadows lengthening gradually into darkness. I knew Amanda and Jason would soon learn what I'd done. Letters from banks, creditors, and mortgage companies would begin arriving, stark and unyielding. I felt no bitterness, no joy in their impending shock, only quiet certainty in the justice of my actions. The following afternoon, the phone rang sharply, breaking the peaceful silence I'd begun to cherish. I recognized Amanda's number immediately, the display glowing insistently. I allowed it to ring unanswered, letting the silence speak louder than words ever could. Soon after, Jason's number flashed repeatedly, urgency growing more frantic with each unanswered call. I imagined their confusion, disbelief, and mounting panic, a quiet reckoning brought about solely by their own choices. Days passed, and still I remained silent. Messages piled up, voicemails filled with pleading questions, accusations, anger gradually morphing into desperation. Yet my phone remained untouched, messages unheard, the volume muted. My silence was my answer, my message clear. I owed them no explanations, no comfort, no further access to my patience or compassion. I had given them everything, freely and without condition, until their greed and betrayal had forced me to draw boundaries I'd never thought necessary. One evening, a knock sounded softly at my front door, hesitant yet persistent. I opened it slowly, meeting Amanda's eyes for the first time in weeks. Her appearance startled me, eyes rimmed red from crying, face pale and drawn, confidence replaced by vulnerability. "Mom," she whispered hoarsely, desperation coloring her tone. "We need to talk, please." I stood quietly, not moving aside, my gaze steady but gentle, feeling no satisfaction in her distress. "There's nothing left to say," I replied softly. "You made your choice, now I've made mine." Her eyes filled rapidly with tears, regret and fear mingling clearly in her expression. "But Mom, we're losing everything. Our house, the vacation home, our savings." Her voice broke sharply, panic evident. "I don't know what to do." I felt a deep ache within, sadness tempered by quiet resolve. "You had my support, Amanda, unquestioning and limitless, until you betrayed it. My generosity was never an obligation, never yours to exploit." My voice was calm, measured, firm. Now, the consequences of your actions are yours alone to bear. She stared at me silently, realization dawning painfully in her eyes. Without further words, I closed the door gently, hearing her sobs fade gradually into silence, footsteps retreating softly down the porch steps. In that quiet moment, I felt no triumph, only sadness that our relationship had reached this point. Yet beneath sadness lingered quiet affirmation, self-respect reclaimed, dignity restored. Weeks stretched into months, quiet routine settling comfortably around me. Amanda and Jason struggled visibly, downsizing their lifestyle, relinquishing the luxuries they'd built upon my unknowing support. Friends and neighbors observed quietly, judgment subtle yet present in whispered conversations, sympathetic glances, unspoken approval of my actions. I returned fully to community life, reconnecting with old friends and neighbors, rediscovering laughter, shared moments, quiet joys long neglected in my devotion to family. Each interaction strengthened me, reinforced my quiet resolve, my newfound power. One afternoon, I received an official letter in the mail, notification of Amanda and Jason's inability to finalize their dream vacation home purchase, denied without my financial backing. Reading the letter, I felt a quiet surge of validation, the finality of their failed ambitions, a clear, undeniable consequence of their betrayal. Sitting quietly in the garden later that day, I reflected deeply. Revenge had never been my goal. Justice, quiet and steady, had guided my actions. Silence had served as my strongest weapon, dignity reclaimed without confrontation, strength proven quietly, undeniably. As twilight deepened into evening, I realized this quiet justice had also freed Amanda and Jason, forced them to confront their own choices, their own worth. Perhaps in losing everything built upon dishonesty, they might someday rebuild authentically, honestly. Perhaps my silence had given them opportunity as well, a gift unrecognized yet essential. Inside the house, the phone rang once more, Amanda's number again flashing persistently. I considered briefly, then picked up quietly, listening without speaking. "Mom," Amanda began softly, hesitation clear in her voice, humility finally present. "I understand now. We were wrong, selfish. I'm so sorry." Silence lingered gently between us, filled with shared history, love tested yet enduring beneath pain. "Your apology means something," I responded quietly, "but forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. It simply means peace within ourselves." She breathed softly, accepting my quiet wisdom. "I understand," she whispered. I needed you to know how truly sorry I am." We ended the call quietly, without promises, yet a fragile bridge gently mended through honesty and remorse. As I replaced the receiver, twilight bathed the room softly, gentle shadows comforting, reassuring. Pain had shaped my path, silence had empowered my decisions, justice quietly delivered through actions deliberate and dignified. They had mistaken silence for weakness, patience for vulnerability. Yet my quiet actions had spoken clearly, my strength now undeniable. I moved slowly through the house, peaceful and certain, reclaimed from betrayal, dignity quietly restored through silent justice. In the gentle hush of autumn, the leaves around my Virginia home began their slow surrender, drifting gracefully earthward, their colors vivid even in farewell, amber, russet, gold. Each leaf a quiet reminder of nature's acceptance of change, a silent teacher in letting go. My own life, now bathed in a similar quiet dignity, mirrored this seasonal wisdom. The pain had dulled to a gentle ache, its sharp edges softened by time, silence, and newfound strength. It was as if the hurt had been an unwelcome guest who overstayed its visit, lingering in the corners of my heart, yet gradually making its quiet exit, leaving behind a subtle, transformative peace. My daily routines became rituals of self-discovery, each small action infused with purpose and clarity. The mornings found me tending my garden, hands deep in earth, cool and rich, feeling each grain beneath my fingertips, connecting me to something larger, older, wiser than myself. Gardening taught patience and resilience, whispered quietly of renewal, of seasons that followed their own time and rhythm, untouched by human urgency. My evenings were spent quietly with neighbors and old friends, rekindling bonds long neglected. We shared stories over cups of tea, laughed gently at memories faded but cherished, offered silent comforts in quiet companionship. These moments, small yet profound, nourished something deep within me, gently coaxing strength and confidence back to life. One morning, while sorting through mail, a pale envelope caught my eye. Amanda's careful handwriting unmistakable. The paper trembled softly in my fingers, curiosity mingling with caution. Slowly, I unfolded the letter, its words penned with uncharacteristic humility, sincerity quietly evident in each stroke of her pen. Amanda expressed regret deeply, acknowledging openly the wounds she'd inflicted, recognizing clearly the scars her actions had left. Her words carried the quiet weight of genuine remorse, a rare and vulnerable honesty I'd never before seen from her. At the letter's close, she revealed news that sent quiet ripples through my heart. She was expecting a child, a daughter. My granddaughter. Her words lingered softly. I understand now, Mom. Everything you did, every silence, every boundary, it all makes sense. I want her to know you, to learn from your strength, your dignity. If you'll allow us that chance. I sat quietly, the letter resting gently in my lap, sunlight filtering softly through sheer curtains, bathing the room in warmth. A granddaughter. The thought resonated deeply, stirring feelings long dormant, hope tempered by cautious hesitation. I pondered quietly, recalling vividly Amanda's childhood, the innocence and joy I'd once shared with her. Perhaps this new life, untouched by the past, offered a chance, a fragile but meaningful opportunity for healing and renewal. Time passed gently, the weeks unfolding with quiet grace, marked by thoughtful reflection. I gradually found myself embracing a cautious hope, a willingness to trust again, to believe in redemption and second chances. I penned a careful response, words chosen deliberately, warmth balanced by clear boundaries. Forgiveness was offered freely, yet trust remained something earned slowly, through actions consistent and authentic. Amanda responded with quiet gratitude, accepting my terms humbly, promising patience and understanding. The months that followed were marked by gentle, careful interactions, each conversation building quietly upon the last, trust and understanding gently emerging. One crisp February morning, the phone rang softly, breaking the quiet reverie of my solitude. Amanda's voice trembled gently with quiet excitement, announcing softly that my granddaughter had arrived safely, healthy and perfect. She paused briefly, vulnerability clear in her voice as she asked softly if I'd like to meet her. If I was ready. My response was immediate, calm yet eager. Yes, Amanda, I'd like that very much. Later that afternoon, I stood quietly in the hospital hallway, fluorescent lights flickering gently overhead, the sterile scent of antiseptic faint yet persistent. Amanda greeted me warmly, her embrace tentative yet sincere, eyes filled with quiet gratitude. In the hospital room, I approached slowly, quietly, my breath catching softly at the sight. Amanda carefully placed the tiny bundle into my arms, my granddaughter's small body warm and delicate, her face peaceful, perfect, unaware of life's complexities. As I gazed quietly upon this new life, emotions swelled quietly within me, powerful yet restrained. Her tiny fingers curled gently around mine, her breathing soft and rhythmic, each breath a gentle reassurance, a quiet promise of beginnings unburdened by the past. Holding her, I felt something deep within me quietly shift, pain giving way gently to acceptance, bitterness dissolving softly into compassion. This child was innocent, untouched by betrayal, a quiet vessel of hope and potential. She represented the possibility of rewriting our family story, a new chapter marked by respect, love, boundaries understood and honored. Tears blurred my vision gently, not tears of sadness, but quiet recognition of life's capacity for renewal, for grace emerging softly even from deepest pain. Amanda watched quietly, emotion evident, respect and understanding, now clearly present in her gaze. As I returned the infant to her mother's waiting arms, our eyes met quietly. Unspoken understanding, bridging the distance between past hurts and present hopes. Over the months, Amanda and I carefully rebuilt our relationship, each interaction quiet yet purposeful, sincerity guiding every conversation, every action. She and Jason had transformed noticeably, their lives reshaped quietly by the consequences of their past actions, humility and gratitude now evident in their choices and behavior. Our family found a new equilibrium, trust still cautious yet steadily growing, wounds acknowledged openly, healing carefully fostered. I resumed volunteering at the local nursing home, quietly sharing my experiences, my journey, with others who had suffered similar betrayals, losses, hurts. My quiet strength became inspiration for many, my story gently reminding others of dignity's power, of silence's quiet yet profound authority. Life moved gently forward, marked by quiet routines, meaningful connections, purposeful existence. I discovered strength and purpose within myself, quiet confidence born from trial, pain transmuted quietly into resilience. My granddaughter grew quickly, her laughter gently filling spaces once silent, her innocent joy a quiet balm for wounds long endured. Her presence reminded us all of life's quiet cycles, loss and renewal, endings quietly becoming beginnings. On my 77th birthday, family and friends gathered quietly in my garden, laughter mingling gently beneath starlit skies. Amanda stood quietly beside me, gratitude evident in her softened gaze, humility now genuine, trust carefully restored. As twilight deepened into night, I reflected quietly, gratitude filling me softly, a profound appreciation for the journey I'd undertaken, for strength found in quiet dignity, for love gently reclaimed from betrayal's shadow. Amanda approached quietly, gently placing a sleeping child in my waiting arms. I gazed tenderly at my granddaughter's serene face, heart swelling quietly with emotion. Love mingled softly with hope. Amanda's voice trembled softly as she spoke quietly, vulnerability evident in her tone. "Thank you, Mom, for teaching us, for giving us another chance." I met her gaze gently, sincerity clear in my response. "Forgiveness heals both ways, Amanda. Our past does not define our future. Strength comes quietly, often after deepest pain. This child represents that truth clearly, a living reminder of redemption, renewal, quiet dignity reclaimed." We stood silently, generations quietly connected, love bridging quietly across pain, forgiveness gently redefining our shared history. Life had shown me clearly the quiet power and dignity, in boundaries respectfully maintained, in forgiveness sincerely offered. Pain had marked my journey sharply, silence had clarified my path quietly, and now strength emerged fully, gently affirmed. Quietly, beneath starlit skies, surrounded softly by love reclaimed, I embraced fully the quiet truth of my journey. Redemption gently born from betrayal, strength quietly discovered in silent dignity. As we journey through our later years, each of us carries stories of joy and sorrow, love and betrayal, quiet victories, and deeply personal losses. Perhaps the greatest lesson life can offer us, as it did for me, is the importance of preserving our dignity and self-worth, even when faced with profound hurt from those we hold closest. We cannot control how others choose to treat us, but we can always choose how we respond. My story, which began with unimaginable pain, guided me toward an inner strength I never knew existed. It taught me that boundaries are not walls to isolate us, but protective lines that maintain our self-respect and emotional well-being. To those watching, especially my fellow seniors who have weathered their own storms, I share this wisdom humbly. Silence is powerful, forgiveness healing, and dignity our most precious possession. Life may sometimes force us to redefine our relationships, and when that happens, we must bravely embrace our worth and set firm boundaries, rooted in self-love rather than bitterness. When we honor ourselves, we teach others how to treat us properly. Practically, this means clearly communicating our expectations, respectfully asserting our limits, and stepping away quietly yet confidently when those limits are disrespected. It means never allowing our hearts or our generosity to be taken for granted. And above all, it means finding the courage within ourselves to begin anew, even when starting over feels daunting or impossible. If you find yourself navigating the painful waters of family betrayal, remember you are not alone, and your worth is not diminished by others' inability to recognize it. Reach out, connect with those who truly value you, engage with your community, volunteer, and find comfort in activities that renew your spirit, gardening, crafting, or simply sharing a quiet cup of coffee with a trusted friend. Let each small act of self-care become a quiet reaffirmation of your inherent worth. Today, I live with peace in my heart, deeply grateful for the lessons learned, the strength found, and the quiet dignity reclaimed. I share my journey in hopes that it might resonate with you, inspire you, or simply reassure you that healing is possible, no matter the depth of the hurt you've endured. Remember, forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves, not a validation of others' actions. As we close this chapter, I invite you to reflect deeply on your own experiences. Have you ever faced a moment when you needed to choose your own dignity over family bonds? How did it change you? Please share your story or thoughts below in the comments. Your experiences may inspire someone else on their journey toward healing. If you found comfort or meaning in my story, I warmly invite you to subscribe to our channel for more stories of resilience, courage, and quiet strength. And if you feel inclined, consider supporting us through a small donation. Your generosity helps us continue sharing meaningful stories that uplift and encourage others. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Until next time, hold your dignity close, nurture your spirit gently, and know you are deeply valued.